Death and displacement at a scale which has not been witnessed in Israel and Palestine, at least in the past decade. As millions of Gaza residents flee towards the south, evacuating northern Gaza amid the 24-hour ultimatum which has ended, now a safe route for fleeing Gazans has been opened for 3 hours. This is what Israel has said. Thousands of Palestinians are continuing to flee northern Gaza ahead of Israel's expected ground incursion. In its latest update on evacuations, a spokesperson for the Israel Defense Forces says civilians are still in northern Gaza and they must head out towards the south between 10 and 1 local time. This as bombings and strikes continue on the ground. Now, they say that the civilians there should use a single route running from Beit Hanun towards Khan Yunis, adding that it will not target these routes during these hours. This, as I said, bombings continues. In fact, several vehicles and convoys were bombed by Israel yesterday, and several women and children were killed. Now, the IDF also says it has shifted the times for an evacuation window over the past few days. The deadline for the original 24-hour window, which was announced last week on Friday, that had passed yesterday afternoon. At the time, Israel designated 2 routes. One of them was the same route the IDF mentioned today. Now, NDTV is on the ground, on the front line of the war. NDTV travelled from Sderot to over to Jerusalem, which of course has key sites of conflict. My colleague Sharma sent us this report from Old City, Jerusalem, and she travels to the front line of the Gaza war.
Right now I am here at the border lines, front lines, where the guns are firing towards Gaza, and we are being asked to leave within 2 minutes. I'll leave, give me 2 minutes and we'll leave. It's a very dangerous area and we are being told it's a very dangerous area. We need to leave immediately. That's what we'll do, because now this is the front lines of the battle, and that is the reason we are being asked to move as soon as possible. Now the entire area is like this. It is the front line area, and now the time given to Gaza is almost over for the civilians to move. IDF has given more than 24 hours, today also more than 4 or 5 hours, and now that time limit is over. Now anytime a full assault will start from here. So this is the place where we are standing right now, and we are being told to move as soon as possible. So even in this times we can see that there is now lots of media is coming in, but we are being told by IDF to move as soon as possible, and no one is being allowed to stop here. So we will take your leave. Sharma from southern Israel near Gaza Strip for NDTV. I'm in Sderot town right now. Now this town was one of the first which was attacked by the terrorists, Hamas terrorists who came here, and now the residents who were here, they have been asked to evacuate completely, because even after this attack, lots of people were here, residents were here. Now we have driven through the town, and what we have seen is a completely empty town. People have been coming here to evacuate. They have been coming here to the city center. We drove through the town, inside the town, but every house seems to be now locked, barred. There are cars on the streets, rows and rows of cars, but you wouldn't see people. Most of them have left this place for safer places. Now, the last of the residents who were staying put, they have been asked to leave. Clearly, it is, and this is a preparation for the assault, the final assault, which is to come anytime soon. Even in Gaza, people have been given some time to move to southern Gaza. These areas, southern areas, have been asked to evacuate some time back, and whoever is now left here, the civilians who have been here, they would also be gone in a few hours. So this will be a complete area which would become something where civilians will not be allowed to be in. In Sderot, Sharma for NDTV.
So very close to the Gaza Strip there, Kadambini reporting from the battlefield itself. But let's listen in to what the spokesperson of the IDF said on what is the current state as far as the evacuations are concerned. Take a look.
We have called on the civilian population in Gaza City and the northern part of the Gaza Strip to evacuate south of the Gaza River. And that isn't news. But what is news is that Hamas has both issued warnings to their civilians not to evacuate, and when people didn't listen to those warnings of Hamas, they have actually stopped civilians and they have stopped convoys of Gazan civilians trying to flee from the situation and listening to our warnings, knowing that they are much better off south of the Gaza River than staying in the northern part.
So, well, evacuations are continuing on the ground and Israel is ramping up its ground forces. But meanwhile, protests are continuing, and these protests are taking place across the world against the Israel war and in support of Palestinians. This as many women and children have been killed in Israeli airstrikes in the past couple of days. Now, there you can see these protests are taking place in Sydney, in Beirut, in Santiago, also in Jordan, Italy and West Bank. In fact, West Bank is supporting against Germany's support to Israel because that has not gone down really well with the Middle East. So these pro-Palestinian protests across the world. And well, what is the larger diplomatic or geopolitical impact? Well, hectic diplomatic parleys happening at the same time. Now, President Joe Biden spoke with Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, urging the leaders to allow humanitarian aid to the region and affirmed his support for efforts to actually protect civilians. Now, President Biden also spoke to Netanyahu, reiterating US's unwavering support to Israel. And well, now our special report, Yasser Arafat, who is the first president of the Palestinian Authority and chairman of the Palestinian Liberation Organization, is somebody who has a major role to play as far as peace efforts are concerned and also the evacuation of residents from the Gaza Strip. But who actually is he and what are his credentials? Well, take a look at this special report.
Yasser Arafat, to come to the rostrum to receive the gold medal and the diploma.
The year was 1995. The Speaker, the President of Palestine. This was a year after the former Palestinian President, Yasser Arafat, was awarded Nobel Peace Prize for his efforts to create peace in the Middle East. He shared the honor with Yitzhak Rabin, a soldier who became Prime Minister of Israel in 1992, and Shimon Peres, Israel's Foreign Affairs Minister.
Those in favor of the resolution, please.
In 1974, Yasser Arafat addressed the UN General Assembly. He said he was holding an olive branch for peace in one hand and a freedom fighter's pistol in the other. Words that ring louder today as any hope of reconciliation between Palestine and Israel becomes a distant dream. Last month was also the 30th anniversary of the accords between Israel and the Palestinians. The deal that led to the creation of the Palestinian Authority intended to provide interim self-government for just 5 years while negotiations solved outstanding core issues in the conflict. Today, nearly a decade after peace talks collapsed, the Palestinian Authority remains in place but is fast losing legitimacy. But this man dared to dream the unthinkable. Yasser Arafat grew up in Cairo and Jerusalem. He took part in the war against the new state of Israel in 1948. As a qualified engineer, he took a job in Kuwait. Arafat founded the Fatah movement in the late 1950s with a view to rally the Palestinians driven out of Israel in 1948 to take up arms. His organization mounted several attacks from various Arab territories, but it was after the war of June 1967 in which Israel vanquished the armies of Egypt, Syria and Jordan in a matter of days that Fatah's central role was cemented. In 1969, Arafat and Fatah took over the Palestine Liberation Organization, that is the PLO, and effectively declared Palestinian independence from the region's power players. The group resorted to terror to attract world attention. But it gradually became clear to Arafat that he would have to accept the state of Israel for the USA to be willing to mediate in this dispute. The world took note of Arafat. In 1974, the United Nations recognized the PLO as the sole legitimate representative of the Palestinian people, and Arafat in military uniform became the first representative of a non-governmental entity to address the General Assembly. Soon after PA was formed with Oslo Accords in place, Arafat was elected by an 83% landslide as the president. But soon, mistrust between Arafat and the Israelis intensified, with the Palestinians claiming that Israel was not fulfilling its territorial commitments, while the Israelis complained that the PA was not doing enough to restrain a Hamas campaign of bomb attacks on civilian buses inside Israel. After the 9/11 attacks in the United States prompted the Bush administration to declare its global war on terror, Yasser Arafat found himself marginalized by the US and the Israelis, who placed him under virtual house arrest at his West Bank headquarters in Ramallah in March 2002. Soon after, Arafat appointed his old Fatah comrade, Mahmoud Abbas, as Prime Minister. In October 2004, Arafat succumbed to his illness. The devastation in Gaza today is testimony to the fact that the path chosen by Hamas is wrong. 19 years after his death, as the Israel-Hamas war takes a new form, Yasser Arafat will be remembered as the man who dared to bridge, even though temporarily, the historic gap between the two countries. In New Delhi, this is Maria Shakil for NDTV.